This is the Washington Times front page for Wednesday, June 30th, 2021. Thanks for joining us. I'm George Gerbo. House Democrats have introduced a Department of Homeland Security spending bill that aims to remake parts of the agency, including clawing back more than $2 billion in money for a wall on the southern U.S. border that was already approved. Stephen Dinan reports the legislation would also cut the number of detention beds at immigration and customs enforcement facilities and pour money into alternatives, such as counseling programs that are popular with immigrant rights advocates. The detention and deportation side of ICE would be cut by 8%, and the Federal Emergency Management Agency would be brought in to help with detention. $500 million would also be allocated to reduce a backlog of cases at U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. The agency normally would raise its fees on migrants filing applications to cover the costs, but immigration rights advocates say migrants can't bear additional costs. The recent surge of cyberattacks has triggered a blame game between private industry and federal agencies over who bears responsibility for ensuring such incidents don't cripple critical economic infrastructure. National Security Team leader Guy Taylor reports the attacks have amplified a debate over whether private companies should have to alert authorities when their systems have been breached. Private industry has long lobbied against such requirements for several reasons, including desires to limit government intrusiveness into proprietary data and concerns about damage to a company's reputation. Sources on Capitol Hill say bipartisan momentum is growing to enact a mandatory reporting law for cyber attacks, to expand the government's authority in hacking investigations, and to elevate federal penalties for cyber crimes. The uptick in those cyber crimes has also spawned a cottage industry of tech experts willing to do what companies and law enforcement won't: negotiate with the cyber criminals that are taking systems and data hostage. Political advocacy reporter Ryan Lovelace reports the FBI's policy that it does not negotiate with cyber attackers has helped open a market for private cybersecurity professionals. They specialize in interacting with attackers on behalf of victims who decide to pay rather than wait for the government to solve their cases. Federal agencies say ransomware payments may encourage attackers and violate government sanctions. The FBI has advocated against paying ransom, but wants victims to contact the agency regardless of their decision. A reminder that you can find all these stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page. Don't have access to the Times yet? Visit WashingtonTimes.com/George and get 25% off your annual subscription. As the race for New York City mayor narrows, Tom Howell talks with Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa, who's putting quality of life and public safety at the core of his mayoral bid. Sliwa acknowledged he isn't a traditional Republican, though he views that as an asset in New York City. He said people should immigrate to the U.S. legally, but those who have been in the country for a long time and follow the law should be extended a path to citizenship. Odds makers don't give the former talk show host much of a chance in the general election, as Democratic voters far outnumber Republicans in the city. In the Democratic primary, Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams leads former City Sanitation Commissioner Catherine Garcia by roughly 16,000 votes, as the city continues to tabulate votes through its ranked choice process. And finally, James Varney looks at advocacy organizations that are looking to curb race-based initiatives in public schools. Groups like Judicial Watch claim some of the plans could run afoul of the Constitution's Equal Protection Clause and state laws on equal rights. According to records, Judicial Watch is targeting one Massachusetts district that used school spaces designed for specialized populations and not all students. Find all of today's front page stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page or the Washington Times app, and subscribe for free to the front page. Just search Washington Times on your favorite podcast platforms. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Wash Times for breaking news, sports, commentary, and more. For the Washington Times, I'm George Gerbo.